Welcome to Pretty Lies and Alibis. Let's seek the truth and travel the long road to justice together. What you know, Alibis, welcome to another episode of Pretty Lies and Alibis. I'm Gigi. Good to have you here. It's Thursday, December 19th. We are going to jump right in. Lots going on in the Luigi Mangione case today. Let's break it down. This morning in Pennsylvania, Luigi waived extradition and was very quickly back in New York. He was also hit with federal charges today. And this is pretty significant in this case because he was charged with murder through the use of a firearm. It could put the death penalty on the table, in spite of the fact that New York hasn't had the death penalty in place since 2004. He was also charged with stalking, travel in interstate commerce, another stalking charge, use of interstate facilities, and then a firearms offense. A source told the New York Post that federal prosecutors pursued their own case to make him eligible for the death penalty. Now, prosecutors would have to get the approval of the Attorney General if they are going to seek death. And right now, it's not clear if they are going to do that or not. Let's read through this federal indictment. For the first charge, count 1, stalking, travel in interstate commerce, from at least in or about November 24th, 2024 to in or about December 4th, 2024, in the Southern District of New York and elsewhere, Luigi Nicholas Mangione, the defendant, traveled in interstate commerce with the intent to kill, injure, harass, intimidate, and place under surveillance with intent to kill, injure, harass, and intimidate another person, and in the course of and as a result of such travel engaged in conduct that placed that person in reasonable fear of the death of and serious bodily injury to that person, and in the course of engaging in such conduct caused the death of that person, to wit, Mangione traveled from Georgia to New York for the purpose of stalking and killing Brian Thompson. And while in New York, Mangione stalked and then shot and killed Thompson in the vicinity of West 54th Street and 6th Avenue. Count 2, stalking, use of interstate facilities, from at least in or about November 24th, 2024 to in or about December 4th, 2024 in the Southern District of New York and elsewhere. Luigi Nicholas Mangione, the defendant, with the intent to kill, injure, harass, intimidate, and place under surveillance with intent to kill, injure, harass, and intimidate another person, and used an electronic communication service and electronic communication system of interstate commerce and a facility of interstate or foreign commerce to engage in a course of conduct that placed that person in reasonable fear of the death of and serious bodily injury to that person, and in the course of engaging in such conduct caused the death of that person, to wit, Mangione used a cell phone, interstate wires, interstate highways, and the internet to plan and carry out the stalking, shooting, and killing of Brian Thompson in the vicinity of West 54th Street and 6th Avenue in Manhattan. Count 3, murder through use of a firearm. On or about December 4th, 2024, in the Southern District of New York and elsewhere, Luigi Nicholas Mangione, the defendant, during and in relation to crimes of violence for which he may be prosecuted in a court of the United States, namely, the stalking offenses charged in counts 1 and 2 of this complaint, knowingly used and carried a firearm, and in furtherance of such crimes possessed a firearm, and in the course of that crime caused the death of a person through the use of a firearm. To wit, Mangione shot and killed Brian Thompson in the vicinity of West 54th and 6th Avenue in Manhattan. Count 4 is that firearms offense. On or about December 4th, 2024, in the Southern District of New York and elsewhere, Luigi Nicholas Mangione, the defendant, during and in relation to crimes of violence for which he may be prosecuted in a court of the United States, namely the stalking offenses charged in counts 1 and 2 of this complaint, knowingly used and carried a firearm, and in furtherance of such crimes possessed a firearm which was brandished and discharged, and which was equipped with a firearm silencer and firearm muffler. The next part is the murder of Brian Thompson. Based on my participation in this investigation, my conversations with other law enforcement officers, my review of documents prepared by others, and my review of security camera video, I've learned, among other things, the following. A. On December 4th, 2024, at approximately 6:45 a.m., Brian Thompson, has in parentheses the victim, the chief executive officer of a nationwide health insurance company, they have in parentheses Company 1, was shot and killed by a masked assailant, the shooter, while walking on West 54th Street towards a hotel in Midtown Manhattan, where a Company 1 investor conference was scheduled to begin at 8 a.m. As discussed below, the shooter was later identified to be Luigi Nicholas Mangione, the defendant. Security camera video showed the shooter, who was wearing a gray backpack, come from between two parked cars, walked up behind the victim, and shoot the victim in the leg and back outside of the Midtown Hotel's entrance on West 54th Street. The firearm the shooter used appeared to have a sound-suppressing device or silencer attached to the front of its barrel. A still image from the security camera video of the shooting is provided below. B. Law enforcement personnel who responded to the scene of the shooting recovered, among other items, spent 9mm shell casings and at least one round of live 9mm ammunition. The words deny, delay, and depose were written on the side of some of the shell casings. Responding law enforcement personnel also recovered a cell phone in the vicinity of the location where the shooting had occurred. The next section is the investigation. Based on my participation in this investigation, my conversations with other law enforcement officers, my examination of documents obtained through a court-authorized search warrant, my review of documents prepared by others, and my review of security camera video, I know that over the course of the next several days, investigators retrieved and reviewed hundreds of hours of recordings from nearby security cameras to track the shooter's movement, both before and after the murder. From that review, investigators were able to formulate the following timeline of the shooter's movements from November 24th, 2024, up to and including December 4th, 2024. November 24th. At approximately 10:11 p.m., the shooter arrived in New York City on an intercity bus at the Port Authority bus terminal in Manhattan. The bus originated in Atlanta, Georgia. The shooter took a taxi to the area around the Midtown Hotel and stayed in the area for approximately 1 hour before taking another taxi to a hostel located on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. The shooter registered at the hostel under the name Mark Rosario and provided a false New Jersey driver's license as a form of identification. The photograph of the false New Jersey ID is provided below. When the shooter was checking in at the hostel, the desk clerk asked the shooter to remove his mask, which he did, revealing his face to a security camera as shown below. Other than this interaction with the desk clerk, the shooter consistently kept his mask on throughout his time in New York, including while inside the hostel. December 4th, 2024. Approximately 5:35 a.m., the shooter left the hostel wearing the gray backpack and rode an electric bicycle down to Central Park West to a location near the Midtown Hotel as shown below. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see these photos on screen. Obviously, the red circle is the suspect. At approximately 5:41 a.m., the shooter walked around the area of the Midtown Hotel and at one point purchased items from a nearby coffee shop. The shooter then returned to a bench in the vicinity of the Midtown Hotel. On at least one occasion prior to the murder, the shooter was depicted using a cell phone. At approximately 6:45 a.m., after waiting near the Midtown Hotel for approximately an hour, the shooter saw and approached the victim, shot the victim multiple times, and then fled on foot to West 55th Street, where the shooter mounted the electric bicycle and rode toward Central Park. After disappearing inside the park for a period of time, the shooter was captured on video again exiting the park near West 77th Street and Central Park West, riding north on Central Park West. When he emerged from the park, the shooter was no longer carrying the gray backpack as shown below. At approximately 6:58 a.m., the security camera footage captured the shooter riding the electric bicycle near West 85th Street and Columbus Avenue. 2 minutes later, at approximately 7 a.m., the shooter was captured on video walking near West 86th Street and Columbus Avenue without the electric bicycle. At approximately 7:04 a.m., the shooter entered a taxi that drove him to the George Washington Bridge bus terminal in the vicinity of West 179th Street and Fort Washington Avenue in Upper Manhattan. The shooter's face was captured by a camera in the taxi as shown below. At approximately 7:30 a.m., video footage from the George Washington Bridge bus terminal captured the shooter entering the facility. No video footage showed the shooter leaving the bus terminal, suggesting the shooter left New York City. On or about December 6, 2024, law enforcement officers searching Central Park found a gray backpack matching the appearance of the gray backpack worn by the shooter as depicted below. They show a photo as that backpack was found. The next section, the arrest and identification of the shooter. On December 9th, 2024, at approximately 9:14 a.m., a worker at a fast food restaurant in Altoona, Pennsylvania, called the police about a male customer, later identified as Luigi Nicholas Mangione, the defendant, who the worker believed resembled photos of the shooter that had been broadcast in the media following the victim's murder. Members of the Altoona Police Department responded and encountered Mangione, who they also believed matched the appearance of the shooter. When approached by responding officers and asked for identification, Mangione offered the false New Jersey ID used by the shooter to check into the hostel. Mangione was later found to be in possession of a loaded 9mm pistol and silencer consistent with the weapon used to kill the victim, clothing that matched apparel that the shooter wore in the security camera video, a notebook, several $1,000s in cash, an envelope associated with an FDIC-insured bank, and a letter addressed to the feds. The 9mm pistol and silencer were later tested and found to be operable by a ballistics examiner from the New York City Police Department. Photographs of the firearm and the silencer recovered from Mangione are depicted below. The notebook contained several handwritten pages that express hostility towards the health insurance industry and wealthy executives in particular. For example, the notebook contained the following statements and entries that appeared to correspond to particular dates. In an entry marked as August 15, 2024, the notebook described how the details are finally coming together, and I'm glad in a way that I've procrastinated because it allowed me to learn more about, and it has in parentheses the acronym for the company. The notebook entry also stated that the target is insurance because it checks every box. In an entry marked as October 22, 2024, the notebook stated 1.5 months. This investor conference is a true windfall. And most importantly, the message becomes self-evident. Later on in the entry, the notebook describes an intent to whack the CEO of one of the insurance companies at its investor conference. As described above, October 22, 2024 was approximately 6 weeks before the date of the murder of the victim, which occurred on the day of Company One's investor conference. The Fed's letter recovered from Mangione stated, "I wasn't working with anyone. This was fairly trivial. Some elementary social engineering, basic CAD, a lot of patience. Based on my own research, I believe that CAD refers to computer-aided design. The Fed's letter also stated, P.S. You can check serial numbers to verify this is all self-funded, my own ATM withdrawals. Based on all of the above, my review of photographs of the shooter and my review of arrest photographs of Luigi Nicholas Mangione, the defendant, I respectfully submit that Mangione is the shooter who shot and killed the victim on December 4th, 2024. Additionally, the notebook entries, the Fed's letter, the shooter's apparent surveillance of the Midtown Hotel on November 24th and December 4th, and the shooter's use of counter-surveillance techniques and escape from New York City all suggest the shooter undertook extensive efforts to identify the victim, place the victim under surveillance, and track the victim's whereabouts in the time period leading up to the murder. Below are the surveillance stills of the shooter and an arrest photograph of Mangione. In these, it has the photo of him standing in his holding cell. Next to that are the two photos of surveillance from the hostel, and the last photo is that cab photo. They end by saying, wherefore, I respectfully request that a warrant be issued for the arrest of Luigi Nicholas Mangione, the defendant, and that he be imprisoned or bailed as the case may be. This was dated yesterday, December 18th, 2024. And that was the federal indictment. I won't be surprised at all if they go for death, but we will see what they decide. At his federal court hearing today, Luigi was in street clothes and answered yes when the judge asked if he understood the charges against him. He obviously is held without bond and will be back in federal court in mid-January. I wonder if he's going to the federal facility in Brooklyn, the same one Diddy's at, because that is the only federal facility in Manhattan. As of right now, I haven't heard either way, but I will update if I do. Moving on to Lori Vallow. Well, you guys know she's representing herself there in Arizona. The conspiracy to commit murder trial is set to begin March 31st. That's for her fourth husband, Charles Vallow. And she has made her first filings while representing herself. So let's read them. The defendant, Lori Daybell, and it says proper, in parentheses, respectfully requests that Maricopa County Sheriff's Office be ordered to produce the following items to the Daybell defense team and to the defendant. All warrants, all summons, all requests, all correspondences between the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, the Maricopa County Attorney's Office, and all other agencies. Any and all of the defendant's requests, general inmate, indigent legal services, grievances, GTL, and mailroom requests. I couldn't find what GTL meant. I know it as gym, tan, and laundry, but that's because I watched Jersey Shore when it first came out. I don't think it's that, though. The defense has chosen to enforce privileged communications and confidentiality, psychotherapist, patient, psychologist, patient privilege under Rule 501 of the Federal Rules of Evidence. The patient has the privilege to refuse disclosure and to prevent any other person from disclosing confidential communications made for the purposes of diagnosis or treatment of the patient's mental or emotional condition. Therefore, the defense will deny any person, agency, or others from obtaining the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office medical and mental health records. Any unauthorized access or request should be denied. This request is made pursuant to the 5th, 6th, 8th, and 14th Amendments of the United States Constitution, and then she lists a bunch of case law. The defense is requesting that this court order the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office to produce the defendant conduct, call logs, correspondences to and from agencies, officials, Maricopa County's Attorney's Office, and all others. All warrants, summons, and court orders to which the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office was requested to provide to others who obtained the above. All requests done electronically, the defendant Indigent Legal Services, Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, Maricopa County Attorney's Office, agencies, officials, and others authorize and non-consent of the defendant. It is requested this court provide an order allowing the Daybell defense team to access this vital discovery listed above. That was dated December 12th. A second filing says, I, Lori Daybell, again in parentheses, she has proper, respectfully request that the state be ordered to produce the following items to the defendant. All emails, all documentation, agency to agency documentation, Governor Katie Hobbs' request for extradition, FBI emails, all documentation between the FBI, the state of Idaho, the state of Arizona, and Miss Rachel Mitchell and Mr. Allister from 2019 to 2024. This request is made pursuant to the 5th, 6th, 8th, and 14th Amendments of the United States Constitution. And again, she cites case law. So Lori dipping her toes in the legal world, her first filings. We'll see how this goes. Pretty big day for Luigi Mangione. The big difference in federal cases as opposed to state is that federal courthouse, you cannot have still or video photography, and they won't release his new mugshot. So it could be a while before we see Luigi again. As always, I'll keep an eye out for you guys. Hope you have a good rest of your evening, and we will see you soon.